Can you present yourself? What is your role?
My name is Robert MacTavish, and my title is I'm a child protection specialist, and I am the Primero lead with UNICEF in the New York headquarters.
Can you tell me what is Primero?
Primero is a web application that was designed to support child protection programming predominantly, but really broadly to help programming in the protection sector.
So it can be used not only for kids, but also for other sectors.
Yeah, in fact, one of the main uses of Primero is for gender-based violence programming, which involves both adults and minors.
And can you give some most used cases for this? Like describe how they use it.
I think increasingly Primero is being used by governments to support their social services workforce in managing cases for very vulnerable, usually children. So typically what that means is there is one responsible individual who's called the caseworker, and their job is to get to know the child, understand what the child needs, and then create a plan of services to address the risks and vulnerabilities that child's facing. That's called case management. That's the sort of principal use case that we deal with.
But how they worked before Primero? How you usually find this organization working with paper or with what?
Yeah, with paper. So the most common sort of visual reference that we often talk about with people is social workers. And you have this vision of the social worker walking around with a big, heavy folder under their arm. And in that folder, there's information about the child and their family, but also about what's happening in the child's life, services they're receiving. In many places of the world, this is still how it's done. Lots and lots of paper.
And if you want to collaborate with, if you have 10 social workers or 10 different maps of folders, you need to find manually and somehow depends.
I have a whole set of photographs that I've taken in different countries of the world of offices of social workers, and everywhere you'll see these massive filing cabinets and stacks of paper, and it's very much traditionally a paper-driven process, which yes, does make it harder for many actors to collaborate together or for the data to be used in a meaningful way.
And I imagine if somebody is going out of job, I don't know, changing the job, to take a new person, to find in all the files, understand the process is much more harder.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. That's an issue, obviously, and although social workers tend to be very vocational, very dedicated to their work, turnover is a real issue. Good social workers develop trusting relationships also with the people in their care, so that's a difficult thing to manage in an analog way, and also social workers do a lot of work. Social services workforce in general do a lot of work that never gets recorded or accounted for anywhere. And for that reason, they're often, among other reasons, they're under-resourced, and the amount of work that they do is often misunderstood.
And I saw in Primero you have a lot of fields. You'll try to get as much more details as possible about the case, about the child, or this helps, I think.
Yeah, one of the problems with social services workers being under-resourced is they often have to manage more cases than they can manage, And so there is the real possibility that important details or pieces of information can be lost or misplaced if their filing and recording system isn't appropriate.
About security. Um, for some organization, we try to build a database or integrate it. They have this issue of security, like this database is secure, how many have access to it, and I know it's more secure than papers, but can you explain Primero? Because this is one of the big advantages I see about security and all these details and adapting for the organization.
Yeah, I think the first and most important step is to acknowledge how sensitive this data is. And that's the job that we try to take very seriously in UNICEF, try to educate others and try to advocate for a very serious approach to data security, data privacy, and to ensure that Primero has been built with a privacy by design approach, which means that everything that we do in the application is meant to reinforce those good practices, accountability to the data subject. So things like, the process for gathering consent to do certain actions in Primero, but also, so that's the sort of data subject rights part. There's also the application and the infrastructure, and those are more around data security. What we have within UNICEF is the good fortune of having a very sophisticated global IT presence, so we can both offer services to partners in different countries to provide the services for them. A very sophisticated type of support service that's not accessible to small organizations, for example. But we can also sort of give governments and partners the playbook for how to do this themselves. So yeah, we're very consistent and very, let's say we're very dedicated to this practice, and we're constantly going through different security protocols and procedures to ensure that we can confidently offer this product to others and feel good about that.
So any type of almost any organization can request Primero for their integration.
We have some different approaches to this, but in general, UNICEF works with a group of organizations that collectively govern the way Primero is managed. So we don't call it a UNICEF product, it's an interagency digital public good. And that means that, yes, we offer it to civil society, different NGOs, to governments, to ministries, as a part of our interventions, as a part of our programming in protection.
How you see our role as in this program?
Our role, your role, as in what?
As a system administrator.
As an administrator? Well, administrators have a lot of responsibility. As you're getting to know Primero, you'll see that there's a lot of different features and configurations. So that's obviously a learning curve and something that takes some time to get very confident with. But system administrators are the sort of first point of contact for support in the country. So, you should be ready for that. You're going to be getting a lot of requests for user level issues. For example, somebody that doesn't understand how to do a certain action or doesn't understand what's happening in their Primero implementation. Sometimes people, they need help to reset their password or things like basic things like that. But also, general trends and changes in the application. We have Primero implementations with thousands of users. So over time, as more organizations and users join, the system administrator's role becomes that much more important. Understanding who's accessing the platform and making sure that, for example, if somebody leaves their job, that their access to the platform is disabled. Those are all responsibilities of the system administrator.
How you think, are we ready for this kind of job?
I think I see you more than ready. I think that we're very fortunate to have a local talent that can step into these roles, because honestly, you know, the people that we're supporting, many of them are not that familiar with technology, and for many of them, this will be a new experience doing their work with a digital platform like Primero.
So, as I know, for more than 10 years already you design and build this Primero.
I am the original product owner for Primero, so I have been around and focused on not just Primero, but information management and data responsibility and child protection, yes, for more than 10 years. I drafted the original terms of reference for what became Primero, but I work with a bunch of different technology partners that are the actual, you know, the developers themselves. I'm not a developer.
What is, I know, three most known cases you used Primero, for example? Some incidents around the world and you managed this?
Well, the first one comes to mind is the outbreak of Ebola in West Africa. So these were our very, very early days of Primero. Our first V1 implementation was in Sierra Leone to support children that had been separated, in some cases orphaned, or that were facing very serious stigma or protection issues as a result of that Ebola crisis. And you know, that involved going to Sierra Leone and working with the government and different partners there. I'm very proud to say that Primero is still live and at national scale in Sierra Leone all these years later. So that's one we like to talk about. Other ones that I'm interested in sharing about are, I mean, Ghana is a country that I have a soft spot for. They were our first Primero V2 implementation. I'm on a WhatsApp group with all of the users there, and you know, they've just gone over, I think, 13 or 14,000 cases of vulnerable children that they support using Primero in Ghana. Yeah, and we you know, I think now we're in more than 50 countries and territories, and I think there are something like 67 or 68 live implementations of Primero globally now.
And plus one now in Moldova.
Yes, plus Moldova. Yeah, very excited about that.
Yes, and I'm also excited to see how this will help Ukrainian refugees and to have a database, clear database, and to work with. I saw these social workers you trained, how they're happy about, wow, I need this tool for my daily job also, not for only refugees. So they are very excited about this tool.
We're excited too. Hopefully it allows them to spend less time you know, doing paperwork and documentation and more time with their clients.
Yes, and I hope in a couple of months or maybe years to implement on more broad services, not only for refugees. This will sure help. For sure, it will help also our community.
I think so.
Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.